Recently, I have been scrolling through my mom's old Facebook photos, and I have found so many pictures of myself climbing when I was little. Also, on a side note, I'm sorry I've had to make this an ASMR video, as my voice is extremely shot. If I try to talk normally, it just sounds, well, pretty bad. So we're gonna have to whisper this whole video. If you like ASMR, good. If you don't, I'm so sorry. But anyways, it seems like there are a lot of photos of me climbing trees. Like, a lot of trees. I even remember this one specific spot I had in my house where I would sit at. I love that spot. I wish it was never cut down. Suddenly, I noticed a huge change in my mom's Facebook. There were no pictures of myself climbing, and instead, they were either replaced by sport photos or myself looking extremely depressed. Well, I don't think I was depressed, but what I think changed when I entered middle school and high school is that I had to look cool, or whatever that meant. So instead of playing and climbing and exploring the world around me, I had to grow up and start working. And as I entered college, this became my life. And I'm not trying to make it sound like work is bad. I think work is largely good, but as a college student, sometimes I think work just becomes my life. I shut myself in, I open my laptop, and write for hours trying to complete assignments. The only time I take breaks is to mind-numbingly scroll social media. And when I run into a problem with my work, I painstakingly try to think it through. Or, again, I run away from the problem and go on my phone. But luckily, I have been learning to go away from this habit. At the end of the day, I was just really tired, feeling very disconnected from myself. Doing this constant pattern of work and then mind-numbing behavior was turning me into somewhat of a machine. So this semester, I tried to balance my life more by taking breaks with activities that were more meaningful to myself. And while I go prepare to do one of these activities, which by the title of the video, you know already what it is, I want to talk a little bit about empiricism and how it changed my life. Empiricism was a term coined by John Locke in the 17th century to challenge the popular idea of rationalism. Rationalism is another philosophical theory about the idea that truth can be grasped directly through the intellect, basically meaning that reasoning, thought, and logic are the only ways to gain knowledge within this world. To a rationalist, all ideas that we build up in our lives are completely separate from our sensory experiences. On the complete opposite end, empiricism states that experimentation and sensory experiences are the major source of knowledge. Locke was the one who famously stated that humans are born as a blank slate and that their minds are slowly filled with experiences. For example, learning how to communicate by observing and talking to others. Now, when comparing these two theories, I side more with empiricism. Rationalism doesn't seem to encompass human nature. The idea that we can only learn from reasoning and logic makes us seem like computers once again. And when I hit that writing block in my essay just now, continuing to stare at my screen wasn't helping at all. I knew I needed to get outside and experience something, because that is what would help me learn and overcome this obstacle. And what I have learned from empiricism is that by going out there and doing something, we aren't avoiding anything, but are actually practicing methods to overcome certain issues. But choosing the correct activity is important, which I will come back to later on. Going back to empiricism, some philosophers are very extreme in their views, such as David Hume, who believes their identity is only composed of perceptions. But I believe our intellect goes beyond experiences, that internally we hold something deeper in our minds. A soul deep inside of us that we were born with that allows us to tune into things that are extremely important. And maybe it's biological too, because when children are born, they are hardwired to orient themselves to the things that help them with their survival, such as their mother. And as children develop, they are constantly experimenting with the world and categorizing certain things into likes and dislikes. But like I said before, when children transition into adulthood, they stop their exploratory behavior. Instead, they are told, whether by their parents or by society, to stop playing and start getting a job, to focus all of their energy on school and work. For example, I just bought a camera lens from this guy who was selling his setup, and when asking him why he was selling it, he said he just had no time, that he had to focus on work. But this mindset of giving up the things that you love to work doesn't seem like you are truly living. And to an empiricist, when you limit your sensory experiences, you also limit your learning and development. But luckily, there are activities that can connect us back to a childlike state of curiosity and exploration. They also bring us a deep sense of meaning that can help us both in our personal and in our work or school lives. And these activities all have a certain element to it. Mine, of course, was rock climbing. But before I get into the exact element that rock climbing has, I want to go over this climb that I discovered. During spring break, as I was already interested in climbing, I went on a hike to take a break from an essay. During that hike in my backwoods, I discovered a rock face. Looking at it, I thought to myself, maybe this would be a good spot to boulder. There were a few things I had to do to this rock before I could climb it. I mostly had to clear off a lot of dirt and moss to create hand and footholds. I also was going to cut some of these trees in the way, but then I remembered the unit about environmentalism and rock climbing. I'm just glad I didn't become a part of the problem of rock climbers destroying the environment. However, there's no remorse for these thorn bushes. They can die any day. Once it was prepared, it was a pretty straightforward climb. I basically just had to go horizontal and avoid some large rocks sticking out. It was actually pretty fun, as this was my first time outdoor climbing, so some of the holds were reminiscent of the indoor rock gym, but then others were completely different. For example, I tried crack holds for the first time. The only thing I kind of struggled on was some of the footholds at the very end. More specifically, one of the very last moves was a leg extension, and well, it just kind of hurt sometimes. Now, I want to answer the question. How can rock climbing help us in our everyday lives? When you watch someone climb up a rock wall, or horizontally as I am, it may look very meaningless, that all they are doing is just ascending some rocks. This judgment couldn't be more far from the truth. To me, rock climbing is just the same as any other art form, except this art form incorporates your body and the natural world around you. But either way, with any type of art form, you have to experiment with a bunch of different things. Art doesn't just appear out of nowhere, and neither does a route on a rock wall. Like brush strokes on a canvas, you have to try different handholds with the rocks. Like here, I was struggling to get around this big slab, but instead of rushing and possibly messing up, I slowed my mind down and carefully looked for the good holds. This is where climbing, I think, is super unique compared to anything else. It almost like forces you to go back into a state of childlike unfamiliarity. For stepping on a new rock wall is like stepping on a brand new planet. You have to explore, be curious, and learn about the environment to maneuver correctly, especially outdoor climbing, which was way out of my comfort zone. I was used to rubber holds and squishy mats to fall onto. However, if you can get past all the obstacles, all of the difficulties, the experience becomes very beautiful. I mean, even during the clunky bits, it's pretty beautiful, because either way, you're connecting to the rock and also connecting back to your body, so you can perform these moves and make it up the climb. Also, it's really important to be super in tune with the moment. Rock climbing forces you to be mindful, whereas all the other activities during your day create distractions, worries, and wavering thoughts. With climbing, you're super focused, because you have to be. If not, you may miss that a hold is loose, like this one right here. Don't worry, I removed this rock and also helped out my little slug friend. I named him Jerry. Jerry the Slug. After practicing the climb a couple times in a row, you begin to enter this flow state, a state where you are so deeply connected to the activity that time ceases to exist. The only thing that matters is you and the rock. This is where I believe rock climbing fully cements itself as an aesthetic art form. When climbers are fully immersed, it's almost as if they are dancing with the rock, flowing in their climb like water up a stream. Some people like myself believe that it's a transcendent experience, connecting to that more fundamental, deeper part of yourself that I called the soul earlier. And empiricists would believe that climbing is a direct relation to learning, because you are experimenting and piecing things together to form a path to success. And it's funny, because if we think back towards kids, they already understand this completely. They are constantly interacting with the world around them, fully appreciating the beauty of things, and seeking knowledge to everything and anything they find interesting. And now, as an adult, we can relearn this mindset through experiences such as rock climbing. But if you're not fully convinced to try out these activities, my last point is how it can actually help you become more productive. Well, allowing yourself to take a little break and go climb or engage in a meaningful activity allows you to reground your character and gives you a break to practice mindfulness. Then, when you return to your work, you'll notice that something has changed. You're not dreading your work, and you can actively engage with the task. You might be surprised to find that the problem you had before now comes with an easy solution. So yeah, I highly encourage you to try and balance your life more with mindful, artistic activities such as rock climbing. I know you won't regret it.